All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Dave Blum. I'm the owner of a company called Dr. Clue, which I'll talk about in a moment. And with me is Lakeisha. Is it Robichaux?
That's correct, Robichaux.
Yeah. Is it Lakeisha? How do you prefer?
Lakeisha Robichaux.
Great. So the topic of today's Blab Chat question and answer session is the 7 secrets for re-engaging teams during an era of layoffs and massive change, right?
Yeah.
And our goals today is to explore this topic of team engagement, to answer your questions as they arise, and to try and identify, like we said in the topic, 7 secrets for re-engaging teams in this era of uncertainty and rapid change. So I'm going to actually hand it over to you, Lakeisha, for a moment. Why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll do mine, and then we'll keep going.
Okay, great. Well, wonderful. Thanks for having me. I am Lakeisha Robichaux. I'm the CEO and founder of Chief of Minds, and Chief of Minds is a business and human resources consulting company. And we work with entrepreneurs, small businesses, and some mid-sized businesses that are looking to upscale their business and either add on a human resources component to their business or actually implement human resources into their business. And that can range from recruiting all the way up to performance management and training and development. And that's why I'm excited to be here today as we talk about these 7 secrets for re-engaging teams during an era of layoffs and massive change. Because with our clients, we work a lot on those different things, on engaging personnel and actually leaders and managers for that matter. So that's it for me. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Dave.
Perfect. Well, again, my name is Dave Blum. I'm the owner and founder of Dr. Clue. We are a team development company, solution-oriented team building company with an emphasis on cooperation, collaboration, trust, and so on. It's we do treasure hunts, scavenger hunts, customer client service recognition programs, bike builds, and that kind of thing. We've been doing it for about 20 years all over the country, and we have about 140 locations worldwide where we do our team building treasure hunts. It's been a pretty good fun run for the last 20 years or so. So welcome, Robert, by the way. I will put a little welcome thanks to Robert. If you have a chance, Robbie, hey, if you have or Robbie, if you have a chance to let us know where you're from, that'd be great. So we are here to talk about the 7 secrets for re-engaging teams. And I think the first question has to be, what is engagement? What is team engagement? I mean, where does that term come from? Do you have any ideas? Lakeisha?
Yeah, so I thought we were going to hear from the two here. So yeah, so team engagement. Team engagement is really reflecting and partnering with your team, whether it be a 1-person team, whether it's 2 or 3, but including them, getting their viewpoints on whether it's different topics, being part of your company, being part of your organization, but making them feel inclusive, empowering your team. I would say also the transparency behind it, because a lot of team engagement comes from the empowerment and the transparency piece, because in order for them to feel a part of their team, you definitely want to be transparent with them, and then you want to empower them as well too, so that way they can feel that there's some ownership inside of the team, inside of the organization. So those are 2 consistent words that I like to use when we talk about team engagement and what it is. And like I said, that can be 1, 2, 3 on up to hundreds within your organization. But one of the focal starting points would be the empowerment and the transparency as a starting point.
Is there a difference between engagement and morale?
Definitely. I definitely think that there is a difference between engagement and morale. Hold on 1 second. I'm hearing an echo. Maybe I don't know if anybody else is hearing that. So let me turn it down. Okay. But yes, I definitely do think that there is a difference between engagement and morale. What about you?
Well, I was doing some reading on this, and it seems like back in before the 80s, in the 80s and 90s, that we didn't have this idea of employee engagement. It was, they called it morale, and then somewhere along the way, they started doing what they called employee engagement surveys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like once
Yeah.
a year, as a way of trying to measure whether people are engaged in the mission of the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And rather than asking them, as just pulling someone aside and saying, "How are you doing? How's everything going? How connected are you feeling?" As you mentioned, how empowered are you feeling in the workplace? They started doing these surveys and calling it employee engagement, and as a way of kind of showing that they're doing something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure how people would respond to it, especially in a period of when you're worried about being laid off. How honest are you going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to say, "I'm very engaged in the mission of the company."
Mm-hmm.
So I think there probably is a difference in morale and engagement, but I think it's just a question of language and the survey tool that they started using.
Yeah, I agree, and that's funny because I just did actually for one of my clients an employee engagement survey about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
We did one, and what it was, it actually was to get some feedback on the morale of the organization. So I wouldn't say just morale, but I would say morale, the climate, and the culture as well too. So it was climate, culture, and morale were three of the pieces that were included in there. But I do think that the two are aligned, engagement and morale, because out of the employment engagement survey, it kind of tells you if how morale is doing, gives you a temperature check on the morale of the organization. So I do think that they are aligned and somewhat probably crosses terms as at some point, but I definitely would keep them separate when speaking about them for team engagement purposes.
So if you were to try and come up with a working definition of engagement at work, I mean, what would you say?
A working definition of engagement, I would say it would be not really I would say the art of partnership, empowerment, and transparency.
Yeah.
For an inclusive team or something like that. Because like I said, I think you have to have that to have an engaged team, that transparency, the empowerment, and inclusiveness. You definitely need that.
Yeah, I agree. One definition I heard was that, that engaged employees, I mean, it's important, right? I mean, that they drive innovation, they move the organization forward, they cooperate to build, the organization. They're kind of like engaged people are behind everything good that happens. They're enthusiastic. They're committed to work. They know their scope of their jobs, and they're looking for new ways and better ways to do things. They tend to be the people in the organization that create new customers, right? All those things, and that the sense what I've read is that. Engagement is when you feel that you're working on something that is bigger than yourself, that you feel like you're in a community, that there are well-defined roles. It's about making strong contribution, being actively connected to the larger team, continuously progressing, and then building things that that serve the customer. That all resonate?
Yes, definitely resonates.
Yeah. I like what Robbie was saying. Engagement means how invested are people in the mission of the company and the work they're doing without being micromanaged. Yeah.
I like that. I definitely like that, Robbie, about the invested piece. So absolutely.
So Lakeisha, you're in the entrenched in the HR world, right?
Yes.
That's one way of putting it. But what's the situation right now in the workplace? Because things since 2008, they've been different, haven't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not before as it was where you have, a wealth of job openings that, you have a lot of choices. I would say that it's actually picking up. It's absolutely not what it was in 2008. So it's picking up in different industries. It just depends on the industry that you're in. So some industries are competitive where the jobs are very slim, and then you have some where it is open, that you don't have as much competition, and you can walk directly, you can apply directly in. So I would say that it's definitely changing, and it's picking up since 2008.
Right. But still, it seems like whenever I talk to my clients, they are often saying, oh, there's been a lot of layoffs. There's been a lot of change, a lot of new people coming in, right? People who don't know each other, who maybe who aren't on the same page. I hear that a lot. It's just change, layoffs, fear of layoffs, and so on.
Yeah. So you do have, in certain, that's right. It's industry specific, because in some industries you don't have the constant rotation of layoffs and terminations that are going around. You do definitely have it. I won't discount it at all, but I do see trends of it picking up more, where you don't see as many layoffs as you had once before, like back in 2008. So there are layoffs, there is, change, and then you do see a lot of new hires that are coming in. I would say definitely, especially like in the technical world, that you're seeing a lot of openings, and you see a lot of more, I would say, skilled and talent in that area, because those jobs are being pushed a lot more. Like, I'm in Louisiana, and so for us, the refinery business, there's a lot of the baby boomers that are retiring, and so the market for that is actually opening up. So you see a lot of that, and then also in the technical industry is opening, versus the layoffs. It's just, that rotation, is the life cycle of the job that's going through.
Right. Would you say that there's a difference between, and this is actually, it's a leading question, so let me rephrase it. I believe that there's a continuum of engagement and disengagement, okay? Meaning there's actively engaged people, partially engaged people. We might have Dr. Bob here in a second.
Hey, it looks like he did join us.
Yeah. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if he, not yet. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like we shall see. So we'll back up and we'll see. We have for those of you who are listening, we have one other person we're trying to have join us, Dr. Bob Rausch. He's having technical difficulties. So, but I believe there are. Hey, my goodness, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Dr. Bob.
I am a technical difficulty. Are you kidding? I got one more thing to do. You guys go ahead. It's been great so far. I want to turn my light on. Just a minute.
Okay. Fantastic. We've got our full team here. There is actively engaged people. There's partially or passively engaged people. And then there's actively disengaged, right? And some stats on this is that about 30% of, is according to a Gallup report. It's called State of the American Workplace Employee Engagement. It said that out of 100 million people that were surveyed, 30% were engaged and inspired. And a lot of it had to do with their boss and their relationship with their boss. 50% were not engaged at all. That means that they are essentially checked out and sleepwalking through their workday. And they're kind of they're in their time, but not their energy or their passion. 50% out of 100 million. And then 20% were actively disengaged, meaning that they're not just that they're unhappy at work, but they're actively undermining the efforts of their engaged coworkers. That's pretty stunning if this is true. only 30% of workers are actually engaged and inspired, and 50% are barely engaged at all, and then 20% are actively disengaged and trying to undermine what's going on. Do these numbers, how do they sit for you?
Go ahead.
No,
Lakeisha, go ahead.
No. You're joining us. I want you to go ahead and get an opportunity.
Actually, before we answer the question, so people know who you are, Bob, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Bob Rouse. I'm a clinical psychologist and PhD in clinical psychology, and I practiced for 17 years. Lakeisha in Shreveport, Louisiana, and
you're right up the street.
Yeah, I left the practice about 15 years ago, and I do leadership development, executive coaching, written a couple books on energy and performance, and life is just good. You know, thank you, Dave, and Lakeisha, it's great to be here. You know, that I've read that statistic. I think that's really accurate, and I think it's accurate for a couple of reasons. One is that I think in those statistics, it says that people are disengaged because work doesn't make them feel good about being at work. It's something like that. And the other thing is, if you have 80-something% of your workforce pretty close to 80%, either disengaged or semi-engaged, that leader's asleep.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree.
They're checked out somewhere, but they're not checked out with their employees.
Yeah, I agree. And I would definitely add that, you know, it's with the work, and then also kind of, Dave, what you alluded to at the beginning about the leadership, because a couple of an employment engagement survey that I did, I would say probably about 4 or 5 months ago, is what it boiled down to was the lack of support from leadership. Is why they felt disengaged, or that's where the opportunity was, and then no support from leadership, and then, you know, no overall mission from leadership. And so that relationship and partnership with leadership definitely means a lot. And so when it's not there and you see a gap, that's where you also see some of that disengagement. Now, when it's there, those employees are engaged because they feel like they're part of the company, the leader supports them. You know, they feel empowered, you know, to do their job. They have clear communication lines. So I definitely add that the leadership definitely has a lot of driving that engagement full force. Absolutely.
I work for the company in East Texas, a steel company, and the CEO was probably one of the top 5 worst CEOs I've ever seen in my life or ever experienced. And he would start his annual meeting with a statement like, "I'm the organ grinder and you guys are a bunch of monkeys, so I'm just going to grind the organ and you do what you're supposed to do." He was draining all their energy, and yet he was expecting them to perform at 100%. And I'll tell you, those steel workers shut down on him really big.
Exactly. And you can't do it. Say that again.
I agree with you. It's leadership. Leadership is key.
Absolutely.
What does a leader do to build that relationship and that engagement? What are some of the best practices for leadership?
Well, I would say starting with really to getting to know your staff, your people. You know, of course, it may be hard at the higher level of the executive, you know, CEO, but at least with the direct employees, of really sitting down, getting to talk to them. First of all, setting expectations, because a lot of employees, you know, when you go in, new leaders, they really don't have any guidance or understanding of what is expected of them, what they need to do. So setting the expectations, but then also getting to know them, what their strengths and the weaknesses are, so they can help develop those employees, because they set the vision, they set the expectations, and get the buy-in from employees to lead whatever it is the mission is for them. So I think starting off, that's a good way in order to engage and get what they're looking for, is to really sit down one-on-one. And I know from most of my experiences, clients that I've worked with and just myself, also being in leadership position, it always starts initially, with those employees one-on-one, setting the expectations, getting to know them, and setting the foundation work for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I work with another company that comes to mind, and we did a survey on the past leaders. Actually, the site leader, who was a senior vice president in this corporation, it was manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing. We did a survey on the past leaders in that particular area. It was out west, in that particular plant. And what we found is the leader who was really the best leader, according to the employees, was the guy who came in early every morning, and he put on his hard hat, and he walked around the plant, and he visited with people. How are you? What's going on? And he would spend an hour to an hour and a half doing that every morning, and then he went to his office and started his day. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you, Lakeisha. I mean, if you not only know your employees' names, but know a little about them, absolutely, and show genuine energy and genuine care, you're going to raise the energy of that employee. Do y'all remember when your father used to walk through the door at night, and you thought, "Oh man, the awesome guy is coming in"? That's what people feel in an organization. The boss, the big boss, is coming through the door, and he's talking to me.
Right.
So,
exactly.
I agree with you.
I totally agree with that, Bob. That is the number one feeling of employees, where you are approachable, just like you said. You know their name. You can spend time, checking on them, seeing what's going on. You get that buy-in, and they want to, they'll work. They'll do basically anything that you ask them to, of course, legally and morally, ethically, that they're supposed to, but you get the buy-in, so that way you don't have those disengaged employees that are trying to undermine what you're doing. Absolutely.
We were talking about, the whole title of this talk is 7 Secrets for Re-engaging Teams During Times of Change. And I think that we could come up with at least 7 or 17 different things that leaders could do to create engagement, right? I think what you're talking about right there. I mean, someone asked me the other day, they said, "So what do you think is the most important thing that a leader can do?" And I said, just care, just demonstrate caring, right? Be interested in people as people, be interested in what their life is like outside of work. So you can to help them to create life-work balance, being interested in their health and well-being, get them the resources they need, communicate openly, treating people as if they're someone who's valuable and who has a skill that the organization needs, having time to actually listen to them when issues come up. I mean, all these things are absolutely huge. I'm sure that the number one cause of disengagement is your relationship or lack of relationship with your immediate supervisor. It's got to be.
Right. It is. Oftentimes that's what you see, because, they don't feel part of the team, or the organization. And so it creates that gap there. And that's the missing piece. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that person needs to walk the talk, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. I was talking to a headhunter here in Dallas, and he said that and we was talking about leadership, and he said that leaders get hired based on their skills, and they get fired based on their inability to build relationships.
That's right. I agree with that.
And I think it's so true. I just completed a course in teaching managers how to coach their employees, and it's amazing how many managers would really like to know how to help their employees, but if they don't get the training, then they don't know what to do with their employees.
Right.
And so just knowing the impact that a manager can have in skill building, as you said, Dave, and creating that team spirit, it is not hard to create a team spirit if you show people that you're really interested. What's the old saying? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Exactly. That's right. Exactly. Exactly.
What do you think is the role of senior leadership? In other words, if you're in an organization and you just feel like the company or the organization is not going in a direction that you believe in, I mean, how does that impact engagement?
Oh man, if the guy doesn't know where the car is going, the passengers are going to be a little bit messed up, don't you think? Yeah, I mean, senior leadership. I'm kind of fortunate in that a lot of my clients now are really involved with their people, and along with doing all of the stuff that a CEO has to do. But most senior leaders are so burned out. Lakeisha, what is it? It's the Lakeisha. You may have heard this statistic. There is a book that was written, years ago by two guys from Stanford, and it's called The Witch Doctors. And what they did is they went across the country and surveyed all these consultants and trainers and the Coveys and everybody else. And in this book, the guys made a quote talked about a research project that a psychologist did. And this psychologist surveyed people across the country who were senior leaders. And what they found was that the greatest fear of senior leadership was that their subordinates find out how inadequate they felt in their job.
Yes. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Yes.
That's why people need Lakeisha and need me, because we coach leadership to feel better about themselves.
Exactly. And that is so true. And to go back to what you originally said about, if the leader doesn't know, because the leader sets, of course, you definitely, want it to be a team effort and not just a leader setting that mission and vision, but they really oversee that process of setting the mission and vision, of the organization. So if they don't know what the mission and vision is or really how to implement that, then like Bob said, you're really in trouble. If our senior management, if you don't know how to do that, then you really will have a hard time leading, because you don't know how to implement it, or you have not taken time to actually identify what a mission and vision is. And so I definitely see that that's their part and what they should be doing and helping implement that.
Yep.
So if a cause of disengagement, particularly in times of stress, is lack of belief in senior leadership and the direction they're going, what is our secret for re-engaging in this area?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about from the engaging piece, and honestly, that the skill and the confidence behind that leader going in, really knowing the work that their skill set, the work that they're supposed to do, the expectations, and what they're setting out in the organization to be, and then really to get, I'm not going to say, dig in the trenches of it, but really get to know the organization, the people behind it, and lead the engagement of it. So like for a new senior level person that's going in, they need to not only just be top bottom, but bottom top as well too. And really, starting off like with a survey to see where the opportunities exist there. So that gives you kind of a platform to build upon, but also, personalizing it as well too, going around and finding out where the gaps are and seeing what they can fill in to increase that engagement. And what we talked about before, the employee engagement is a great starting piece to look at that.
I just wrote down, maybe our re-engagement secret number 2 would be to communicate the mission and vision of the organization and personalize it, is what you said. Make it personal.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I think that the beginning has to be with that leader himself or herself. In other words, one of my favorite writers is Warren Bennis. I think Warren Bennis died last year, but he's a great writer, and he wrote a book called On Becoming a Leader. And one of the things he talked about was the first thing a leader needs to do is to examine himself or herself. Who are you? What qualities do you bring? what are your gaps? I love the gap thing. What are your gaps, and how do you close those gaps so that you get yourself out of the way? Most leaders, no, this is not fair. Not most leaders. Many leaders are in their own way. And what I found, and I bet Lakeisha's done this too, what I found is that if I can get a senior leadership team together, which is what I do, I have what I call actually I call it a come to Jesus meeting, but I don't tell them that. But it is that. What I do is have them to really talk about one another. Talk about, where did you come from? Mm-hmm. What do you like? How do you like? How did you learn your leadership skills? What was your relationship with your family? I mean, all kinds of things, so that people begin to learn something personal about one another, so that they can start spreading that concept through the organization. Yep,
I agree with that. I like that come to Jesus meeting, but absolutely personalize it to them. Absolutely. And then to add to that, one of the things that I've done also with senior leaders, and this is, I like the concept of what you're saying about bringing them together. And one is also for them to get to know the senior manager. And it's basically kind of an introduction session, if you would. And it's basically they go through a number of questions that they ask personal as well, too, because when you can, take away the professional, we know that, some of the skills and backgrounds, but then the personal, to personalize it so that way they can get to know them a little bit better also helps as well, too. And they feel, more enlightened and easy to approach them as well, too. So I definitely like that. Like to add to that.
So as a manager or a leader, how do you get to know what people are thinking? Right? I mean, that obviously it takes place on a personal level, right? Employee to manager, manager to employee. But as an organization, if you're really thinking about boosting engagement from the top down, how do you get to know what people are thinking and needing?
I don't know what you do, Lakeisha, but I had a mentor who always said, ask questions. Always, always, always ask questions. And I think that rather than to go and just say, hey, Joe, how are you doing, or whatever, I think to go in and say, you've been doing this for this long. How would you do this differently? What would be a way that we could really do this so it'd be easier on you and easier on the other people? So in the process of asking questions, I mean, what you're doing is you're really genuinely soliciting their knowledge, their insight about what the job is and what would you do because again, you guys probably know this, but people are not going to tell a CEO the truth.
Right.
They're not going to do that. I mean, so if you have something where you set up to ask them particular questions about the organization or, how's your team function? And, what are the things you like about it? What are the things you change about it? Well, the idea is to get them in a place where it's non-threatening. It's a non-threatening question, and it's very personal, soliciting or tapping into their knowledge.
Right. Absolutely. Definitely. Asking questions. That's the only way you know. And that's who you want to know from. You want their opinions and their feedback. And as Ken Dixon said, so many people forget to ask questions, which is the key to any relationship. If you have the employees, you want to be able to hear from them because they can tell you exactly what you need to know. And that's where and I keep reverting back to this because it's so important when we talk about employee engagement surveys, but that's going to give you what you need to know because you can ask it in an anonymous way. And as you just said, Bob, they're not going to tell the CEO the truth. You ask them, how's it going? Tell me where where our improvements are, what we need to improve upon. They're not going to say it. Everything is just going to be fine when they speak to you. So that employee engagement survey gives them the platform that they need to be upfront and be honest and share with you, where the hangups are, where the wins that we've had as well, too. But it's anonymous. And so you'll get more honesty. But the key is as you said, and as Ken said, it is asking questions. You ask them.
Yeah. And it's really, this is not as easy as it sounds. You know, it sounds like we talk about this, say, oh, yeah, man, I go in there and we just make that little thing happen. And it is really, human behavior is just fascinating. And again, I think the reason we're in business is to really help people better themselves, but help them get to their spot. I don't take things, and I'm sure Lakeisha this way as well. I don't take things to them. Mm-hmm. I want to know what they think.
Right.
What do you think about your leadership?
Yep.
Most leaders, I want to back up. Many leaders that I've worked with have started a conversation with, I don't feel like I'm a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, when your leader doesn't feel like they're a leader, you got a real problem.
Right.
But it's you know, it's really hinges on that person getting comfortable in their own skin and being able to then reach out to their people, their senior leadership team. And you know, the other part of it, Lakeisha, I want to hear what you think about this as well. If you have someone who's not playing with the team, they're not playing in the sandbox well, fire them. Get rid of them. Yep. Quick as you can, send them out the door.
I agree. As long as you have your documentation on them, that's that HR background. But definitely, because all is going to be toxic for the company if you don't. It's just going to be toxic and create, you know, they'll latch on to another employee and it'll just be a domino effect and it'll be hard to get rid of. So, yeah, if they're not playing in the sandbox, you know, you need to have the upfront conversation with them. I definitely always say, you know, try your best to improve. Sit down, have a one-on-one conversation, talk about ways to improve and try to implement that. And if that doesn't work and you still see that they're not trying to play, then you've had those documented conversations and you need to move forward towards termination because it'll ruin your organization if you don't.
Oh, absolutely. One person, no matter how good your team is, one person can kill the energy of a team.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I also want to speak on what Ken talked about. And Bob, you mentioned this. Ken said the problem arises when the CEO won't tell the CEO the truth because the CEO won't get out the CEO's way and they don't want to be upfront and honest with themselves. So I definitely like that. You know, when you do ask the questions and the CEO does not want to, does not take that feedback and really want to do something with it, just sits on it. You know, and doesn't want to be truthful with themselves because some of that feedback that they're getting may be about them. And so it is actually a tool for improvement, but, you know, they won't let the truth really sink in and do something about it. So, yeah.
And that, of course, that's our job. But, you know, our job is to confront CEOs if we have to confront them.
Exactly.
The idea, if we got this information, what do you want to do about it? But I would say the same thing. I sound like I'm a murderer here, but I would say the same thing if a board of a corporation realizes a CEO is not doing those kind of relationship things and they're ignoring it, then, you know, they need to free up his future.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's always the boards. That is always my, and I have to go get my charger in a minute. Hopefully that doesn't ring. But I always tell the boards definitely, look, you know, this person is not, you know, engaging. They're toxic for the company. So either, you know, you get ahead of it, you know, and nip it in the bud now, unless you want to go ahead and submit to detriment for the company, because that's what's going to happen if you don't. So I totally agree. Yes. Hold on one second, guys. I need to go get my charger.
Okay. I like what Ken Dixon was saying. He enjoyed free up their future, but he also asked whether people with different perspectives, you know, by letting people go who have different perspectives, are we losing, you know, that? Are we losing those maybe necessary contrary perspectives?
Well, it would depend on what the perspective is. I mean, if you have a specific direction as a leader, I'm not big on mission statements and all of that unless they're really put into practice. But if you have a certain purpose and you want your team to move in that direction, it's okay for people to disagree. It's okay for people to have a different perspective, as long as it fits where the entire team's going. Mm-hmm. If it's like we're going, the whole team's going left, but this guy wants to go right. Well, that person either has to shift, or we have to understand what the person's saying. And then once we understand it or comprehend it, then does it fit into our overall plan? And if it fits into our overall plan, hey, man, let's do it.
Right.
But if it doesn't, then, the person's got to, the leader has to make a decision about, what really, or the team has to make a decision, what really fits into the plan. Differences are great. We have to have differences.
Right. And you want that. You want that outside, that person that thinks outside of the box, as long as it's adding value, to whatever the problem is. If they're coming up, with a solution that may be different than, the way anyone else may think. And I think a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes it actually, it's a healthy debate, healthy conversation, sure. For them to really start thinking in a different direction sometimes. And that's actually the direction, that you end up going in, depending upon what it is. So absolutely. I totally agree.
Patrick Lencioni, who's written all these books, the 5 dysfunctions of a team and so on, it's kind of a cottage industry. And he writes these business fables. He talked about how what you want to have is a passionate discussion of ideas. That it's not personal. It never gets personal, but it's a passionate discussion of ideas with the understanding that once ever you've had your say, a decision has to be made, and you may not agree with it, but at least you've had your say and you've said your piece, and then you make a decision and you move forward and you give it your buy-in. And without that, you're going to have a group. Well, I mean, it can go both ways. Without that passionate discussion, you're going to have a team or an organization that is lifeless and is just group talk and group speak.
Well, yeah, it's disengaged. That's what it's interesting that we've often heard think out of the box. I think organizations need to start thinking in the box. What I'm saying? It's like we can think of new ideas, and it's a good thing. I mean, at times but I like what you said there, Dave, because what you're saying is that passionate, that passionate discussion is about what's in our box here and how do we make this better? Because if we make this better, then we're going to set ourselves up to look across the street at our competition, and how do we do it better than they do it? That kind of a thing.
Right. Right. Exactly. You see that a lot with the Walgreens and the CVSs, because they're on the corners of each one, so they of each other, and so they really, competitive wise, they're always trying to match each other. How can I compete? What do you have that I don't have, or what can I do better? What can I bring to the table? A CVS versus Walgreens is going to make this customer come into our store. And so they have to constantly think innovatively, and have that competitive edge in order to do that, to keep that
corner of healthy and happy.
Yes, exactly.
There's a really good book. I have it over here. It's by Richard Sheridan. It's called Joy Inc. And it's talking about a company where their main value is joy. And I can't remember exactly how they phrased it, but they said that really, engagement comes when you know that you're creating a product or service that really, truly helps people, right? That gives value and really helps people. And I think that, we're talking about the interpersonal issues, and they are vital, but I think it's also important that the organization, it matches your value system, right? They're creating worthwhile products or services, and they're involved in the community in a positive way. And I think that if you feel like you're on a unimaginative, distracted, disengaged organization that does not care at all about the community, your own engagement's going to fall off.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I just finished coaching actually right before this show, and then I had all my little technical difficulties. But I got a young man in Santa Barbara, California, and that is exactly what we're talking about. And that is the idea that when you know what you do and you do it well, then it's time to get over yourself and to begin reaching out to other people to see how many lives can you touch with what you do. You know,
right.
If you put oil in a can, or you whatever you do, or like you said, Lakeisha, whether it's CVS or Walgreens or whatever. I mean, how do you touch the lives of other people? But I don't think we can get there until we really know our own where we are. What's in the box for us? You know, and
right.
I love the idea of reaching other people. Because what's the point?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I agree.
What about social interaction outside of the workplace? Because it doesn't all happen in the cubicles, does it? Do you feel like? Yeah.
That depends. For me, I mean, I think there are social events that a company puts together, and I think they're really, really important. Whether it's a crawfish fried or a crawfish boil down in South Louisiana, or in North Louisiana too, or it's everybody goes on a picnic or whatever. I would be real careful about being too social with subordinates.
Oh yeah, I absolutely.
Mistake.
But yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think it's good to, leader-wise, to go and show your support, show your face. And I shouldn't just say show, but show your support. Actually attend. However, at some point you really cut that off. And the way I like to frame it for my clients with coaching them is that, you definitely want to be supportive, and then, get to know who all is there, say hello. But at some point, a little while after, go ahead and let them, have their fun. Go ahead and let them enjoy, what the company, has sponsored. And at that point, it may be time to leave, because I totally agree that you don't want to get too social, because there's a fine line there.
No, I agree. I do think that, again, that this idea, if we're talking about management walking the talk, if there's an opportunity, for example, to do some community service, they should make an appearance and show that, hey, if I'm asking you to go off and do community service, I'm there to put a few nails in, right?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, that's great, yeah. Hey, Dave, I'm sorry. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
But I would say also that engagement, from my experience working with hundreds of organizations over the years, is that you even take the management out of the situation. People like to work at a place where they are friends with people, and that sometimes those friendships get built when you take them out to do community service, you do a recreational event, you do an occasional a team building activity like what I do. It does break down the barriers, so that when you come back to the workplace, you say, I learned something about you. I learned something about your family. We're more friends, and that familiarity and camaraderie, it builds an engaging corporate culture.
Can I ask Ken a question?
Sure.
Yeah, because I see this. I'm not fond of the word subordinate. I'd love to know what would be a word that would work for him. I mean,
that's a question, like it's for Ken.
But what do you, Lakeisha? What do you call a leader? Do you call them subordinates or people who report to others?
Usually I say I'll either use the word employees or team members. Actually, team members or something. The two words that I normally use. So
it said teammate.
Yeah, teammate. Yeah, teammate. I usually say for the colleagues. When you're looking at org charts on the colleague line there. But for the leaders, I would say our team members. Other words, or employees. Is what I'll use.
Yeah. I love the idea of teammate. I love the idea of the team, but I maybe it's just my age. I still think there has to be a recognizable hierarchy, because I know that the behavior of people oftentimes require someone that they can look up to, someone that they're reporting to. And I do like the team. I love team idea. I mean, Dave, that's what all of us do. But I really like the idea of a hierarchy, not a rigid hierarchy, but where people know, well, that's my boss. He's the guy I report to, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that at all. I do like the idea, and I always speak team. When talking with clients, it has to be a team environment. But I do know that it is a fine line, and there has to be a degree of separation for the leader and the team members there, because you have to have someone that does lead. But I think now more times, in organizations, the buy-in and engagement revolves around, team and employees seeing that leader be a part of the team. Kind of like what you talked about earlier when you said, the leader that they like the most is the one that goes in and, walks the building 1 hour with them, gets to know them, talk with them. So when they know that leader is invested in them as well, not just the work that they can put out there, but it is invested in them, then, they're more, they'll give more opportunity to buy into that leader and get to know them and, do what they're supposed to do. So actually implement it. Right. But I think it's just now more you hear that more, and the expectation is around the team centered pieces. But you definitely have to have that degree of separation.
It's such an interesting balance, isn't it? On the one hand, you have this top down leadership that comes from senior leadership and the ship that they're steering into the future with the mission and the vision. And then it comes down to the relationship you have with your manager or supervisor, that person who is interested in being clear with you about, that the organization has a plan for you. This is your role, and that there's a career path, and that person cares about you. And then, we could have an entire blab. Maybe we want to schedule one on what can people do from the bottom up to create their own engagement, because it's not all on the top-down management to create engagement in you. You have to wake up every day saying, I'm bringing my 100% today, right?
Right. And then and like you said, that's a blab there. So how can you help them bring that 100% as well too? So
yeah. As a coach, what can we do? Sometimes you have someone who is a little bit toxic, and through skillful coaching, you can start to turn them around so that they start accessing their own engagement. It might just be that they haven't found that path. I do believe before you let anybody go, you try and at least put the tools in front of them, whether it's coaching or whatever, to re-engage themselves. But
I do too. And please don't misunderstand me. I don't think you walk in and say you're out of here.
Yeah.
We're going to really free up your future. No, I think that's what coaching is all about. I think it's how do we retrieve someone and help them develop their skills and develop themselves and have a career path for them. I mean, if I'm a manager, how do I move up, and what do I do? How do I develop myself to move up in the organization? So, I'm not necessarily for shooting people at sunrise or anything.
I had an employee one time, and that was one of the things that she wanted. She said, I want to have, she's my direct report. And she said, I'd like at least once a week to get out of the office and have lunch together and talk to you, to get to know you, which I thought was cool. And then she said, what is your idea of how I'm going to grow with the company? And that is a fair question. And the fact that she had to ask it says to me that I haven't communicated it well enough. Thank goodness, right?
Yeah, at least you know exactly.
Yeah. I think
there's a guy that I worked with out in Irvine, California, and he was transferred from the East Coast to the West Coast in this particular huge organization. And one of the things that he did, he and I had talked about that he did, is for the first 6 months, he really never gave his team a concrete plan. He just asked them how have they been doing what they've been doing for all the years, because the team had been relatively successful, and he had been brought in to make change to update the department and where the company was going and all that stuff. And it was pretty incredible that this guy had the insight to keep listening and keep understanding what these people have done, and to praise them for that. Just to let them know how much he appreciated their success to this point. And I think people thrive on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't get it done, by yourself, and you need the team members to do it. So the listening is key, because that's what happens oftentimes. Or what happens is, like we talked before, we ask, but then, we hear, but we're not really listening, and taking that and implementing it. To make it worth his while, we're just going through the motions. And sounds like him, he's actually, was actually listening to hear how can the company improve. And I think that helps a lot with engagement, when you actually listen and implement, some of the things that they talk about, put it into action, that they're not just going through some type of process just to say they do it, that they know that it will be taken with care and something will be done with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Bob, you said something there about appreciation. And I think that shouldn't be minimized in any way, how important appreciation is, because I've never met anyone in an organization who feels that they are sufficiently appreciated.
Right.
It's very often forgotten, neglected. We have tasks, we have strategies, we have tactics. We have to, there we go, I'm getting some props for that. But I mean, it's so important. And there are so many ways to do it. I was in an organization, I was doing the team building program for an Indian organization, and they had a full-on Bollywood award ceremony. And people had to come up to the stage with this Bollywood music playing. They had to dance up to the stage where they got their certificates. Almost everybody came up, and many of the people had rehearsed their dance moves, because this was the culture of their organization. But I remember just thinking, it doesn't have to be that way. I know there are organizations that will do a full-blown sort of almost like an Oscars ceremony, right? Mm-hmm. But it also could be handwritten postcards that you give to somebody, or praising notes on the bulletin board, or whatever it is that you can do that makes people feel seen, appreciated, and valued is huge. At the end of all of my programs, when I do a team program, I always have people receive appreciation from their teammates. Each person gets a minute in the spotlight where all they can do is just nod, say thank you, as they receive appreciation for their contribution. And many times they'll say to me afterwards, that was the most important part of the entire program, was realizing that people saw me today. They saw how I contributed. They saw how I was an important piece of this puzzle. And gosh, I just never get enough of that. So
right. Yeah, recognition is like the number one. Many surveys that are done, it always shows that recognition is the number one reason why employees stay, and then also why they leave, when they don't feel like they're recognized, or they're happy, to be at a company because they feel like they are recognized for, the positive efforts that they've done and that they contributed to the organization. They feel valued. Again, the word that you use, they feel appreciated. So it is, it's always, and thanks for joining us, Ken. Yeah. It's always been the recognition and the appreciation, that keeps your valued and your high performing, high quality employees on board with you.
Yeah, it's absolutely vital, and it's so often neglected. Half the time I do these programs and people's like, okay, we're done, let's go. It's like, no. We are not done. The most important thing, we need to take the time to do this. Otherwise, we've missed something important. We've missed the human element. And it's not, as you're talking about appreciation, it's not only about money, although people, it's the interpersonal. So. Right.
And to speak about money, which money is a short-term factor. It doesn't last long term, because as soon as they get, if you talk about money, you give them, the bonus, or they get the pay raise, they're still at some point weeks, a month, 2 months later, that they feel, okay, what else can I do? But when you show appreciation, that's lasting. That's an intrinsic feeling that they have, and that lasts longer. That impact there, lasts longer than just money, because money, there's always, you think, okay, well, I can get more and more and more, but that appreciation makes them feel better long term versus money, which has been surveyed, numerous times.
I think if you have,
I know you guys.
Sorry,
You guys can. I mean,
Dave.
Dave.
I was going to say, we'll come back to for sure. I would say if people start nickel and diming around money, and I had an employee who was doing this at one point, it's because we haven't done something to make them feel engaged. That we, if that's like the symptom of a deeper problem of that we have not done all the things that we talked about in the last hour or so, and so they're now defaulting to, since I haven't been getting all these other things, I better well get paid. But if people are getting all of this engagement from all these different angles that we're talking about, you're not going to have an acrimonious nickel and diming situation. Of course, people have to be paid commensurate to their contributions and value, but it's usually a symptom of something that you haven't been doing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I had two little comments here. One was I did work with a guy in Louisiana, actually, and he told me that he never complimented, how did he say that? He didn't compliment his people because the next thing that they would want was a raise. And I said to him, "Are you kidding me? Why did you come up with that?" But I do know, based on, I love that idea of having that period of time where they show appreciation publicly. But I know you guys know this, the three top motivators. The top one is involvement, the second one's appreciation, and the third one is money.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're all saying, we're beating the same drum. I think the idea is that it costs nothing to go down and say, "Dave, you've done a great job."
Mm-hmm.
Or, "What an incredible job you've done with this." I mean, it costs nothing.
Right. Exactly. Just that pat on the back. You think about it with your kids. If you have kids, you telling your kids that you've done a great job, you're happy, proud of them.
Sure.
That means so much more than that allowance or, something that you give them. That's everlasting, that impact. And that's something that they remember all throughout their lives when you tell them that. Same thing with employees, because that is an intrinsic feeling that they have internally, that keeps them going, moving, and actually wanting to do more. They feel proud about it. So absolutely.
We've been going for a good hour. I didn't set a cap to this conversation, but I do want to respect people's time and taking, some of you are on vacation, some of you are at work today. So I do want to respect people's time. And I wanted to leave some time for questions. They have been coming in a little bit, but if anyone has any questions from the three of us about teamwork, team development, or team engagement, please do ask your questions. And while they're contemplating that, I want to ask the two of you one, parting pearl of wisdom that you have on the secret to re-engage teams and re-engage people in these troubling times.
Ladies first.
I would say definitely empower your team, and then be transparent. And when I say transparent, of course you can't always, say everything, but keep them involved, communicate with them. And that lets them know that they are part of the team. They know what's coming up, changes or different things, and you'll get that buy-in more. So I would say empower and transparency are vital to any thriving, growing organization. And so definitely I would say implement that.
How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I would say that a leader really needs to consider how he re-energizes his organization. If you have a car and you put a tank of gas or in that car, and you say you're going to drive to Baton Rouge, let's say, then I'm not going to drive to Baton Rouge on a tank of gasoline. So I would look at 4 ways to re-energize your team. Spiritually, which has to do with purpose, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I would make a list every day, and I'd do what's on my list.
Fantastic.
I guess we lost our leader, huh?
What do you mean? Am I not here?
Oh, it says poor signal.
Oh, are you?
Why don't I see him?
Yeah, maybe it's yours. I think I'm still here.
Yeah, we've had tornadoes, so probably mine.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I think for me, I think it's there's something to be said for creating an intentional culture. You know, I mean that's a whole nother topic, but you know, you look at something like Google, and they have this sort of culture of playfulness, and this place called Menlo Innovations, where they have a culture of joy. You might have another organization where its emphasis is on family. You might have an organization of I don't know, marathon runners or whatever. Maybe their culture is adrenaline, you know, and that's their thing. But I think that if your value system matches the culture, you're going to be more engaged. And so if you can be intentional about that and say, hey, welcome to the group. This is who we are, and this is what we represent. You don't necessarily have to be that thing, but when you start to attract people where this values and culture is in alignment, I think it's going to be a place that is going to be bristling with energy.
I agree.
You know, what I like about this, what you're doing here, Dave, is the fact that you know, we're not coming up with earth-shattering, monumental things. It's kind of like, be human and care about your people, and don't make it so hard. You know, make it more personal and make it more energizing. And I like the discussion because, you know, I mean, we don't hit on anything that's just unbelievably earth-shattering, but we hit on something that really gets to the heart of the matter, and I think it's caring about people.
Yeah.
Right. I agree with that. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, it's the people. The people that's your most valuable asset within an organization is the people. So that's what it drills down to. The core.
It's caring about people and getting work done, but also caring about people to the point where they want to bring their 100%. They feel cared enough and nurtured enough, and also there's clarity, and they can do their best work because they're not looking over their shoulder saying, I'm going to get, you know, replaced, all that, right? You know, but feeling like I feel secure, I have the tools that I need, you know, I feel valued, cared for, I want to give my 100%, and then you get things done. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, right on. Well, we should do this again.
Perfect.
What do you say?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
I think we might have a few more things to say about this topic.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I felt like we just scratched the surface of this whole topic, and it's you know, like I said, it's teamwork as well as engagement, and it's also you know, coaching yourself up. All of this is great topic. So I think we should do this again. We'll talk offline and figure out a topic, and you know, and also based on the conversation we've been having from our wonderful visitors as well. We can come up with a topic that hits hits their pain point, right? Yeah. Thank you. If there are any other questions, Phil, ask. Otherwise, I'm going to pause the recording and say goodbye. Thank you both for
bye.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Yeah,
brilliant.
New Year
again. Yeah, and actually, before we leave, if you could, everyone in the message, go ahead and put down your contact information, either an email or a website, so people can follow you.
Okay.
I'm going to put my website. There we go. The shame when we're just disembodied voices and they don't have a chance to go and see what else we're doing. Cool.
Yes. And
Okay. What I got in there?
Got it.
Perfect.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. Thank you all, and we will be doing this sometime soon. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Thank you. Happy New Year's.
Happy New